Is this an even greater trend then that is in work here? It's like a work in progress, this chasm between rich and poor, so that citizens will eventually just be indentured servants and you'll have the royalty and peasants. I mean, is that the bottom line?
Well, that's the way they're going now. Look at the sectors. Look at banking. I mean, who takes most of the business when you add it up? What is it, Wells Fargo, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Citigroup? Go into agriculture and food processing. Who do you have out there? Cargill, Tyson. Few companies are controlling all of the business. We've gone from the greatest entrepreneurial empire in the world to one that Mussolini would have called, a fascist country, where we have a merger of state and corporate powers. They're hand in glove. Who would have thought that in 1 year between Bush and Obama, we'd be owning companies like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and AIG and General Motors, and that we'd be giving taxpayer trillions to bail out these criminal operations that I love it, they call them investment banks. How about brokerage firms that gamble? What investment banks? Oh, and then they make them banks, holding companies, to give them more of our money when they get into trouble. So, I mean, it's just a charade out there, using language and the cover of Washington to continue to rob the people blind, make the gap between the rich and the poor wider, and throw people and become indentured servants.
I'm just curious. I'm going to move to a different topic here very quickly, and we'll come back. But I know you're heavy into gold, and I know you don't give out financial advice, so I just want to talk about this in a roundabout way. But GATA, obviously, I'm sure you're familiar with, has been fighting against the Federal Reserve and some of these agencies to disclose information about what it is that they're doing with what I think GATA considers the U.S. citizens' gold and not the Fed's gold. And they've been denying that they've had any type of gold swaps with other foreign countries or swaps in general. And it was just disclosed to GATA that they do, in fact, have these swaps now. They're not saying that they've utilized them or done anything with our gold, but doesn't it strike you as odd, Gerald, that, again, we have this Federal Reserve, which isn't part of the government in any way, and could be foreign-owned or owned by European tentacles as well as other wealthy families and other elite banking institutions, that could take the United States citizens' gold and possibly swap it or sell it off to surreptitiously try to artificially support a strong dollar policy globally? Doesn't that strike you as odd?
Well, it doesn't strike me as odd. It strikes me as typical. They'll do anything they can, schemes undreamed of, to rob the people blind. And it's perfectly logical that they're going to continue to do it. Let's watch the G20 meeting that began on September 24th. That we may see some upward movement, for example, on the dollar and downward pressure on gold as a result of that, because it's out of control. And we saw gold move well over $1,000 an ounce, and then as soon as the G20 met, gold started moving back under the $1,000 mark and losing traction against the euro and other key currencies. So the whole world, financiers, this is an engine that's out of control, and they're going to do everything that they can to manipulate it back in their favor. But any type of manipulations they do are only going to be temporary.
I'm curious, Gerald, about your thoughts when you heard earlier this year, because I know that you follow this, some comments from Department of Homeland Security leader Janet Napolitano when she described veterans or returning soldiers as right-wing terrorists. Because my spouse, Elizabeth's father, did 3 tours of duty in Vietnam and was captured on his 3rd tour of duty and had his back broken in a prisoner of war camp. And I can tell you, Gerald, these veterans are some of the most patriotic people in this country. What were your thoughts when you heard Janet describe these people as potential terrorists? Because I was outraged.
The same thoughts I had when President Bush was in office, when they would say you're either for us or against us, and that we had to keep a very low profile. And we're political atheists. We just call a spade a spade. And if it upsets someone, hey, we're not saying you have to believe what we say, but we don't have to believe what you say either. We're not, our motto at the Trends Research Institute is think for yourself. So this is the tactic that governments use continually. when in time of crisis, what they do is they silence the opposition while they rally the other people around them in the arena of fear. Look what Bush did, with 9/11, how they kept playing the fear card. He went from a president that was lower in the polls 9 months into his presidency as Obama is, about the same thing, I believe, or a little lower, right around the same level. And then 9/11 came, and everybody rallied around them. They'll do the same thing if something happens with Obama. So this is just a typical government tactic, whether they do it in Nazi Germany or the USA.
But, Gerald, as you know, you don't get on either side of the political spectrum. That's just not a place that you go. And you stay neutral. You'll be critical of both sides for a variety of reasons. But the bottom line is they could take somebody like a Gerald Celente and put them on their terrorist list because you're a dissenter. Gerald Celente is a dissenter. He's not going along with the program. So he's a potential right-wing terrorist, and we need him on the list at Homeland Security. Doesn't that bother you that that's the country we live in today?
Well, exactly. And it's with the Patriot Act, again, under the Bush administration and being pushed forward by the Obama administration. And look, what did we find out? Walter Cronkite was on the FBI list. So this is what they do. They will shut dissent out at any cost for them to maintain power. Again, how people could look up to and follow politicians is beyond me. And I'll say this, Eric, and I want to make this really clear. Anyone that follows their leaders is going to do so at their own peril. Because if they follow their leaders during this economic and possibly geopolitical crisis that's about to come, they're going to go down with their ship. Because the leadership could care less about them. Do you think Nancy Pelosi cares whether or not Eric King has a place to live tomorrow or a meal to eat? And this country's going down, and the people that follow their leaders are going to go down with them. I also want to make this clear. Clinton, Bush, Pelosi, Barney Frank, Christopher Dodd, Bonner, Bond, Shelby. These are not my leaders. They couldn't lead me across the street. They're political hacks, every one of them. The only thing they know how to do is to be a politician, and that means never having to work a day in your life, having a crew of serfs and slaves around you that they call staff and aides, and to be assured that even after you leave, you will continue to live in the style that you had been accustomed to. And how people can tolerate this, and the Obama show and the rest of them, is beyond me. And how they could look up to them, to me, is a loss of dignity and respect.